youngest child and our only son was born at Banner Desert Hospital in the very cold early morning hours of a December day in Mesa, Arizona. My job as a father was to bundle up his four older sisters, get there for the arrival, so I was successful in getting my four daughters there. I think my wife was there as well. That was a joke. She was there. She played actually a very large role in this. So that was a wonderful experience for our family, and then afterwards, my job as the good dad was to get my four kids well fed and off to school. So of course, we went across the street to the McDonald's across the street from Banner Desert for a nutritious meal. And I remember as we were sitting down to have that breakfast, thinking about my youngest daughter and the fact that she had enjoyed the role of the youngest kind of spoiled kid in our family for the last 8 years, and she was about to be displaced from that kind of prized position in our family. And so I was wondering, gee, how is she going to adjust to this? So I remember as we sat down, I said, Abby, you know, your role in our family is changing. This is going to be a little disruptive for you. How do you feel about this? And she got this very contemplative look in her face and kind of stared off over my shoulder, and she said, change is good. I thought, wow, that's a pretty mature attitude for a 7-year-old little girl. She must have great parents. I'm really proud of that great attitude she had. And then I noticed that her gaze continued to kind of stare off over my shoulder, and I turned around and looked at the big sign in the big window right behind me. It said, change is good. Try the new all-white meat chicken McNuggets. You guys, as graduating seniors, whether you like it or not, there's some change on the horizon for you. And I guess my advice to you is don't be scared, because change is good. It provides an opportunity to focus your vision, assess how you're doing, and to make plans to improve. But it's not just the inevitable changes coming with milestones like graduating from high school that you need to learn to embrace. It's also the changes that you yourself decide to make, the calculated risks to follow your passions. Don't be afraid to make positive changes in your life and to go in a different direction. I would tell you that your ability to adapt and even embrace change in your life will have a big impact on your future happiness. That's in large part how you're going to arrive at answering that second question of why were you born? To get the positive change you hope for, it's important to be on the right path. And I think for all of us from time to time, we occasionally veer off that path, and the trick is learning how to get back on. Sometimes I've been off that path. Let me share an embarrassing story with you about that. When I was in the ballpark of your age, I was living here in Mesa one day, and I was anxious to get home from work to an important family event. But as I approached the intersection on my way home, I noticed that there had been an accident, and there was congestion, and obviously we were going to be stopped for quite a bit of time. Well, being younger and somewhat impatient, I was unwilling to wait for the situation to resolve, so I started to consider my options. As I did that, I noticed, parallel to the street, was the canal road. I was very familiar with that canal road because I jogged on it many times, and it dawned on me that that canal took me straight back to my home. And it would be perhaps a clever shortcut to bypass the closed intersection. So, being young and somewhat foolish, I ignored the nagging voice in my head that reminded me that what I was doing was wrong and possibly even a little bit illegal. And I pulled my car onto the canal road, feeling somewhat pleased with myself that I would be smarter than the poor souls who would be stuck in traffic while I got home early. Shortly after beginning my questionable detour, I noticed that this was the time of the year the Salt River Project came by and scooped large piles of sludge out of the canal and dumped them on the side of the road. I could drive around the piles and continue down the road, but the further down the road that I traveled, the larger the piles and the narrower the gap between the sludge and the edge of the canal. Well, as I looked on, I was only a few hundred yards from my house. I could see my house. So I decided I would continue forward and perhaps disregard again another prompting that what I was doing wasn't that smart. Well, as I traveled down the canal road, I noticed that I was traveling along the backyard fences of many people in my neighborhood. I soon realized that they were noticing me, and several people were shaking their heads in disdain. I even think I saw somebody mouth the words, "knucklehead," as I proceeded down the street. However, this only served to strengthen my resolve and caused me to prove to myself and others that I, despite the obvious evidence to the contrary, was on the path to success. Soon, however, I literally arrived at a dead end to that path, and there was no path forward. So I was forced to very slowly and painfully drive backward the entire length of my journey, past my admiring neighbors, back to the intersection where that had long since cleared from the accident. Of course, I arrived home very late, dripping in perspiration from my embarrassing, foolish, and dangerous trip. But I had arrived learning a valuable life lesson. Though we should not be afraid of making mistakes, and we shouldn't be afraid to try something new, it's important that we remember that the path that we choose to take in life will determine where we end up. So it's important that we choose those paths very carefully. Ambitious climbs generally lead to better locations than shortcuts. Tonight, I'm happy to celebrate your great decision to work hard and graduate from Mesa High School. That's a big deal, and we're very proud of you. From here, you'll go on to more education and training, and no doubt be a great success. Always remember that you're a jackrabbit and can change the world. It really is something to be proud of. But what should your path to success be? Where do you go to discover why you are here? I'm not going to answer that question. That's for you to decide. But I do have some advice for you. Spend some time, if you haven't already, and discover what your life's passions are. Is it helping young people to learn? Is it medicine, or business, or public service, or one of 100 other things? When you figure out the answer to that question, next figure out how you can turn it into a career. That is a great path to a happy and successful life. If you're not, at some point, if you realize you're not on that path to reach that goal, then make that long and embarrassing backward journey, if necessary, and set your laser sights straight towards your life's passion and do your best to avoid detours along the way. In my office at City Hall, I have a big whiteboard on the wall, and up on the top of that whiteboard are the letters WIGS, WIGS. WIGS stands for Wildly Important Goals. I've learned, and I believe, that it's important that we focus on 2 or 3 big goals in our lives, and that helps to, at least for me, it helps to help sharpen my pathway forward. And so, if you don't mind, I suggest to you that if you don't have another tool like this, that today, this is an important day, Baccalaureate. I'd encourage you to spend some time talking to yourself today and to jot down 2 or 3 WIGS, wildly important goals. I'd even be so bold as to suggest that you take your baccalaureate program, a memento tonight, and jot down these 2 or 3 wildly important goals of where you want to take your life to be headed. I promise you that later in life, that will be a very meaningful thing as you reflect back and see where you've come and the path that took you there. My job as mayor is to brag about Mesa, to talk about all the good things that are going on here. And I love that. There are a lot of great things going on in our city. But I think the more important path for me is to focus on our weaknesses and to find ways for us to get better. I've called that trying to get to the next Mesa. I think most of you are familiar with our Mesa City logo. The 3 flat-topped mountains or mesas that sit one next to each other. The idea here is that we're on a certain level as a city, but we aspire to be better. We aspire to go from one level to another. I would ask you to consider the same idea. What do you need to do to move from one level to the next personally and in the future with your goals? Wherever those goals take you, I hope that you'll consider coming back to your hometown, Mesa, Arizona. We don't want to lose you. You're our best and our brightest. You're Mesa's future. Thanks again for allowing me to be here to share some thoughts with you. And again, congratulations. And I just want you to always remember, you are special coming from Mesa High. And remember to always carry on. Thank you.